What is up, guys? Welcome back to another UFC prediction video. This weekend, we're going down under to Australia for Della Maddalena versus Carlos Prates. Amazing welterweight contenders fight here. And without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get right into the full card predictions. All right, first fight on the card, Don Marfan versus Cody Steele. Don Marfan made his UFC debut in his last fight, looked amazing. And he's just an absolute gritty fighter. Very good stabbing teep kicks to the stomach. Pretty good offensive grappling. The ground and pound's nasty. Applies really good pressure. Solid low kicks. His kicking game is pretty good, and his striking overall is just absolutely aggressive. I really like the violence that he brings to the table. And I think that could give Cody Steele some issues because, Cody Steele last time out lost to Rong Zhu in what was an absolute barn burner of a fight. But even though he has a lot of jiu-jitsu experience, he really is predominantly a stand-up fighter from what I've seen, at least at the high levels. When he fought, what was the guy's name? Chasen Blair? No, I can't remember the dude he fought on the Contender Series, but he was able to finish him with a left hook to the body. That fight was on the feet, and, like I said, in the Rong Zhu fight, he pretty much just scrapped in the pocket the entire time. He may go for a more calculated game plan here, look to implement some grappling, look to implement some, back taking, maybe just safer striking, look to point fight a little more rather than scrap. But I don't think that Don Marfan is going to let him do that. And I'm actually going to pick Don Marfan here to win a decision. I just really like his grittiness. I think he's going to do a lot of damage. His clinch striking is very, very good, where I'm not super impressed with Cody Steele striking in the clinch. And I'm just not overall super hype on Cody Steele, but Don Marfan is very impressive. I'll take him to win a decision here. Next fight on the card, Jonathan Micallef versus Thimba Gorimbo. I believe Thimba's last fight was that loss versus Luque. No, he lost to Jeremiah Wells. Yeah, on that Apex card. But, coming in off of 2 losses to Luque and Jeremiah Wells, not great looks, especially with your last few wins before that being like Pete Rodriguez, Nico Price. Thimba Gorimbo isn't very technical. He has okay offensive grappling, but his stand-up is really, really, he looks like a baby deer out there. He has no balance or agility whatsoever, no coordination. He has a decent right hand. He's kind of powerful. Was able to beat Ramiz Brahimaj, which is a super solid win. Ramiz Brahimaj is a really good win for Thimba Gorimbo, considering how good Ramiz Brahimaj has looked recently. Jonathan Micallef looked good on the Contender Series, and then made his UFC debut against Kevin Jusset. Absolutely dominated him, and then was able to beat Oban Elliot last time out. I think that Jonathan Micallef, his striking might be a little bit better than Thimba's. He's still not like the most eye-catching striker. His technique's not that great, but he is effective. And I think that his ground game overall, the ability to latch up submissions, we've seen Thimba Gorimbo submitted before in his career. And I think that Jonathan Micallef could look to attack submissions, but overall, I'm going to pick Jonathan Micallef to win a decision here in his home country. I think that Thimba is just really overrated, and his athleticism carried him, earlier in his career, but, he just does not have good technical ability. So I'll take Jonathan Micallef by decision. Next fight on the card, Ben Johnston versus Wesley Schultz. Has Ben Johnston ever fought in the UFC? I don't believe so. He may have fought on the Contender Series, but I actually am, not really recalling Ben Johnston's game. So I didn't really do research on this fight right here. Wesley Schultz got knocked out by Damian Pinas and Abdul Razak Al Hassan on the Contender Series. Damian Pinas was on the Mexico card, but his striking is pretty poor. He has okay kicking at range, but very good grappling and submission game. His submission ability is very, very good. He got some type of crazy submission on his Contender Series fight. And, I don't know why this isn't loading right here, but I'm going to pick Wesley Schultz by submission. I think that, as long as he doesn't just get knocked out on the feet, he's going to give a lot of guys some problems with his grappling. So give me Wesley Schultz by submission here in this fight, round 2. Next fight on the card, Colby Thicknesse versus Vince Morales. Vince Morales, grizzled vet, coming in off of a few losses against high-level competition, though. Taylor Lapulus, Elijah Smith, and Raul Rosas Jr., those are no losses to sneeze at. And he was in there for all of those fights, except for the Taylor Lapulus won. Taylor Lapulus completely dominated him, and I was actually there for that fight in attendance. Great card that was. But Vince Morales, in the Raul Rosas Jr. fight, in the Elijah Smith fight, he pushes a heavy pace. He looks to throw up a lot of submissions. He does have a dangerous guard. He'll look to throw up triangles, arm bars on you if you're not careful. Thicknesse was able to beat Josias Musasa last time out. Did lose his UFC debut to Alexandre Topuria, but no shame in losing to Topuria. And Thicknesse is a pretty well put together fighter. Fights a lot like Volk. Really good lateral movement, stance switching ability, footwork's on point, and his striking volume is pretty solid. Doesn't have a lot of pop, not a lot of finishing potential, but he'll look to get the body lock against the fence. He'll look for an inside trip from there. Solid offensive wrestling from Thicknesse. Maybe not a huge submission threat, but I do like his striking, his footwork, and his overall game. And I think that as long as Vince Morales isn't able to break him with pressure, where I don't think he'll be able to, because I think that Vince Morales, his ability to cut off the cage isn't going to be good enough to stop Colby's ability to use footwork and, circle around the cage essentially while flicking the jab, flicking inside leg kicks, put numbers up on the board like that. I think Thicknesse is going to have success with that. Vince Morales is kind of going to be chasing him, not cutting off the ring, and then Colby's just going to kind of squeeze his way to a 29-28 decision, point fighting, kind of like Volkanovski versus Lopez, if you will, where Morales just kind of isn't able to cut off the cage or find him, and Thicknesse just landed nice little counters, little pull 2-3 counters, inside leg kicks, and Vince Morales is just going to be one step behind. So yeah, give me Thicknesse in his home country, hometown. Give me Colby by decision here, 29-28. Next fight on the card. Come on now, guys. Why are we doing this? Do I pick GM3 by sub? No, you can't pick GM3 by sub. I'm going to pick Jacob Malkoun. I'll pick him by TKO. GM3's looked very not durable recently. We know GM3 is one of the best submission artists ever in the sport. Like, he's genuinely insanely good at subs. Guillotines, darces, arm bars, triangles. He literally can do it all. And he does have a massive size advantage here, where hopefully if he can get a takedown, he would be able to get a submission, because if he gets you down, like, you're going to be in trouble. Submitted Edmund Sabazian, submitted Ryan Barberena most recently. Those are his most recent wins. But, getting chinned by, I believe it was Mikel Olasechek, Kyle Dawkins, Tavares even beat him over 3, which is a bad look. GM3's definitely slowed down a lot. He kind of looks like he hammers a bottle of Jack before going into the cage most of the time. He was piecing up RDR, but that just kind of shows how bad RDR is. But GM3, grizzled vet, we all love him. Entertaining submission style. He can come back from the depths of hell and submit you if you don't finish him. But Malkoun looked great last time out versus Torres Finney. Put the volume on him with the hands. I think that he's just going to be able to kind of do something similar to what Mikel Olasechek did to GM3. So, yeah, give me Malkoun TKO early, unfortunately. But I'd love a GM3 submission. That'd be amazing. Next fight on the card. This is a fucking weird fight. Both of these guys are just so ass. Junior Tafa, we know the deal with him. Not a lot of experience. Was able to beat Sean Sheriff, but sub by Tuco Toko, sub by Billy Alenka. He had some decent little KOs earlier in his career, but he's not a put-together fighter. Finished by leg kicks by DeLima. And he's a kickboxer getting finished by leg kicks. But other than a big looping power shot, that is all that Junior Tafa has. He has absolutely nothing else other than power in his hands. Kevin Christian, on the other hand, even though he did get finished last time out versus Billy Alenka, he was low-key looking solid in that fight. And he looked to have made major improvements since his Dana White Contender Series fight against Francisco Mazzeo. I know ball, but I don't even have to check the record. Come on now. But Kevin Christian versus Francisco Mazzeo, both of them in that Contender Series fight, looked horrible and super slow-paced fight. Christian's striking looked atrocious, but he was able to get a guillotine. He is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but his striking is just absolutely fucking horrible. But the reason I said he made a lot of improvements in that fight with Billy Alenka is because he was throwing mean kicks to the inside of the leg. Looked like he had broken Billy Alenka's shin, honestly, or at least caused some sort of injury. And he was throwing really, really heavy kicks. And the dude's fucking massive as well. He's 6'7", 6'7", pretty tall fighter, intimidating fighter in the cage, but his defense is non-existent. He leans back out of the way of punches really awkwardly. He'll, try to swat his opponent's hands away from his face. And if Tafa's able to land an overhand right like he did against Billy Alenka or like he did against Sean Sheriff in their fights, he's probably going to put Kevin Christian out. But I'm actually going to have a sneaky underdog pick here. I'm going to pick Kevin Christian. I'm going to pick him by submission. I think that he's going to be able to kick Tafa at range. Tafa's going to make a low IQ decision and just end up getting finished. Kevin Christian will either pull a sub or he'll knock him down and ground and pound and then sub him up, club and sub style. So, yeah, give me Kevin Christian here by submission. Even though I don't rate him whatsoever, I think he's really bad. Tafa's even worse. Next fight on the card, Robert Bryczek versus Cam Rowston. Cam Rowston's been really impressive ever since coming back from his loss against Torres Finney on the Contender Series. Was able to get a good left hook KO win on the Contender Series. I believe he made his UFC debut against Cody Brundage. Handled that very easily. No, it was against Petrosky. Got the TKO there, and then got the TKO against Brundage. Cam Rowston, put together kickboxer, city kickboxing style fighter. Rear hip feints, fake pump faking the jab, lots of front kicks up the middle, jab low kicks, check left hooks. That's kind of the city kickboxing style. Cam Rowston doesn't switch stances as much as maybe an Israel Adesanya or a Kai Kara France. Reminds me more of a Carlos Ulberg than Izzy or Kai Kara France. But Robert Bryczek looked great last time out versus Brad Tavares. His boxing is definitely his best attribute. Really good power shots in his hands, and he has a good amount of KOs on the regional scene. His UFC debut against Ihor Potieria, I think he said he was injured or something for that fight, but he looked really, really bad. Lost to Potieria there. And if you're losing to Ihor Potieria, there's an issue there. But Robert Bryczek was able to get the TKO win versus Tavares in his last fight. Came through as an underdog there and looked good doing it too. Like, got multiple knockdowns. Boxing was on display. So this is kind of like a boxing versus kickboxing style of fight. But I am going to pick Cam Rowston here. I really like his range in this fight. I think his knees up the middle, kicking game, just the jab is going to give Bryczek a lot of problems. If they were the same stature, I would pick Bryczek here, but I think the height reach advantage is really going to play into Cam Rowston's skill set. I'll say he wins a close decision here in this fight. 29-28. All right, we move on to the main event of the evening. Guys, could it be Tai Tuivasa versus Louis Sutherland? I'm not even going to waste time talking about, the ins and outs of their games. Tai Tuivasa, he's got big slugging ability on the feet, overhands and elbows, and they both have decent, hard, heavyweight style calf kicks. But I would not even be surprised if Louis Sutherland took down Tai Tuivasa and got a ground and pound TKO, because Tai Tuivasa is so fucking bad. But he didn't look atrocious last time out versus Teixeira. Yeah, he did. They both looked atrocious, but Louis Sutherland lost to Brando Perisic, who's like very, very good, very, very athletic, has a lot of skill. That's not Tai Tuivasa. And he also lost to Walker. And Walker's a very heavy submission threat. And he wasn't doing bad in that fight to begin with. Yo, guys, I'm low-key picking Louis Sutherland here. I think Tai Tuivasa is completely washed. I think he's completely sold. The jiu-jitsu tattoo is fucking hilarious. But I actually think that Louis Sutherland is going to be able to weather a storm on the feet early, start throwing calf kicks. He's going to get himself a takedown in a round 2 ground and pound TKO. So, yeah, I just cannot believe in Tai Tuivasa anymore, ever again. I remember that Tybura performance was horrible. This dude was literally one fight away from fighting John Jones, which is absolutely hilarious. But, yeah, give me Louis Sutherland here, round 2 ground and pound TKO. Next fight on the card, how on earth is Brando Perisic -125 against Shamil the Blob Gaziev? They're literally like the same stature. Shamil, the only time he has an advantage against his opponents is when he's significantly bigger than them, like in the Thomas Peterson fight. Look, here's the deal with Shamil the Blob Gaziev. The dude is a fucking fat loaf, and he's not an athlete. He is not a professional athlete. He's not a professional level mixed martial artist. The dude is terrible. He has a big, just oafing right hand, a fat man's right hand, and some really shitty, I mean, you can't even call it a double leg takedown. He just kind of falls on top of you and lets his weight do the work. Shamil has no skillful attributes whatsoever, and nothing I've ever seen from him has impressed me. I don't know if I've ever even picked this guy to win a fight. I picked Cortez by knockout. I picked Peterson. I did pick him to beat Dontel Mays, but Peterson's just that shit, and so is Dontel Mays. Dontel Mays can't grapple whatsoever, and schooled by Jairzinho Rosenstrike. Brando Perisic is an extremely athletic heavyweight. He moves very well. Trains out of city kickboxing. 2 TKOs in a row against honestly better opponents than Shamil. Like, Shamil's so fucking bad. It's not even funny. But he's not going to be able to grapple Perisic. Perisic has very good athletic takedown defense and on the feet. I mean, this is just going to be an absolute massacre. Like, literally the best bet on the card, Brando Perisic, minus 125. I bet him for a unit. Definitely going to reload on him. And I think he's going to win very easily here against Shamil, who's coming in off a KO loss, has no footwork, super fucking slow, sloppy, sluggish, fat, unathletic. Perisic is the exact opposite. Excellent kickboxing, very good low kicks, power in the hands, accurate, athletic. He's going to KO Gaziev in the first round. Next fight on the card, also a pretty easy pick, Steve Erceg versus Tim Elliot. Now, Tim Elliot, been around for a very, very long time, fought on The Ultimate Fighter, has more UFC experience than you can even start to remember, honestly. I mean, the dude's been fighting in the UFC since I was a fucking baby, honestly. Like, it's crazy. He's had a very long career, the definition of a grizzled, crafty vet. Coming in off a win where he displayed that grizzled, crafty vet status, where he was able to lull Kai Asakura into a false sense of security and then get the submission. Tim Elliott, on the feet, kind of just goofs around, kind of plays the gimmick. Doesn't really do a lot on the feet. Fucks around, basically. But on the ground, his takedown entries are very, very solid, and he's a crafty submission artist. He has a very dangerous guard. He'll look to take the back, wrap up a choke on you really quickly, so you got to be aware of that. But that's kind of all of the danger that Tim Elliott's going to be bringing nowadays in the big 2026. Excuse me. Steve Erceg, make no mistake, don't forget that this dude is an extremely high-level fighter. Other than losing, kind of a fluke KO to Kai Kara France, and what was a razor-close 2-3 loss to Brandon Moreno, former champion, he's only lost to guys that have been champ or fought for gold. Was able to beat Ode Osborne there, got dropped, but Ode, very, very fast striker. That's not what Tim Elliott is. When you look at Steve Erceg's performance versus Alessandro Costa, versus Alexandra Pantoja, versus Matt Schnell, he is a very, very, very good put-together fighter. He's very technical, high fight IQ, except for that takedown he shot against Pantoja. But his boxing defense to overhands isn't very good. We saw that in the Costa fight. We saw that in the Kai Kara France fight. But Tim Elliott's not a guy that's going to throw a lot of overhands. His defensive jiu-jitsu is very, very good. We saw that in the Pantoja fight, was scrambling and grappling competitively with Pantoja, which is a very good look. Was striking competitively with Brandon Moreno, giving him a lot of trouble with the knees up the middle, the kicks, the jab. And realistically, I think that Steve Erceg is just going to be able to point fight here, use his crispy boxing to put points on the board, good kickboxing ability to put combinations together. His anti-wrestling and anti-jiu-jitsu is extremely high level, some of the best in this entire division. So, with that being said, I'm going to pick Steve Erceg. I'll say he actually gets a round 3 TKO here. I'll say he gets a round 3 TKO, maybe a similar left hook to what he put Matt Schnell out with. But, yeah, give me Erceg here to beat Tim Elliott by TKO. All right. This is an interesting fight here. Quillan Salkilld versus Beneil Darius in the main event. Let's just be real and not waste our breath. He's lost most of his fights by TKO. Beneil Darius, that is, KO'd by Charles, KO'd by Sarukian, KO'd by Alexander Hernandez back in the day, KO'd by Barbosa, KO'd by Benoit Saint-Denis with a gust of wind. The Renato Moicano win looks really good in hindsight, but he got dropped in that fight too. The durability of Beneil Darius is truly an issue. He's getting up there in age. I think he's 37 now. And don't get me wrong, Beneil Darius is a very high-level fighter. But his athleticism and his durability is what's going to fail him here in this fight versus Bedtime MMA. Nah, versus Quillen Salkilld. But look, Beneil, high level grappling, extremely smart positionally. He scrambled with Gamrot. That was a great win from him. He's got a great, dad bod overhand left that he can catch you off guard with if you're not paying attention. He dropped, Gamrot with that. And Beneil, his takedowns, jiu-jitsu ability is very, very high level, and he's got a really good body kick. His rear-sided attacks on the feet are solid, and his grappling is super high level. He'll take the back, he'll pass your guard very, very good. If he shoots a old man double leg and lands in guard, he doesn't look so old when he's passing your guard because his jiu-jitsu is very slick. But Quillen, last fight, he did win by submission against Jamie Malarkey. Head kicked Knack Parast. Nazareth hack press before then. I like the win over Yanalash Moose. Yanalash Moose, pretty underrated fighter. Quillen looked good in that fight. Dominated on the ground. Looked good with the stand-up with the Muay Thai skills. He has good Muay Thai skills. Nice rangy 1-2s, good body kicks, good stabbing front kicks. And, of course, he has good roundhouse head kicks. We saw that in the hack press fight. But Quillen, the athleticism is going to be what wins him this fight. He's younger, faster. He's going to be really strong in the clinch. Good knees up the middle. The speed on the feet is just going to be a massive issue for Darius. And I think that Quillen probably going to handle business here in this fight. Probably get a round 1 TKO. If he wasn't such a good grappler, I may be a little bit concerned about him getting held down and controlled here. Like, Aljo versus Zalal, Charles versus Max. But Quillen is a very, very good grappler. Defensively, he's going to have to show it here, but I think his athleticism and his size advantage is going to help him. He's going to be a lot quicker to the punch. He's going to land some nasty shots in the clinch. And, yeah, Unal was trying to take him down. Malarkey was trying to take him down. Neither of them were successful whatsoever. I think that even though Beneil's way higher level than both of those fighters, I think that in terms of his athleticism, he's probably subpar compared to them. So I think Quillen's just going to be able to shuck off a takedown, and one of the first few clean shots he lands on the chin is probably going to be out cold for Darius. Because, you look at some guys like maybe Charles or who's a fighter that's taken a lot of damage recently. I mean, I don't know. A lot of fighters that get KO'd often, sometimes you think, wow, this dude's not going to be able to take a punch. Vicente Luque, for example. Maybe Charles, Vicente Luque, guys that we know have taken a lot of damage, been KO'd a lot. We always worry, if they get hit once, they're going to go down. Well, Max landed on Charles. He didn't go down. And, Luque took some shots recently, didn't go down, like against Joel Alvarez. Sometimes these guys that look to be completely chinned, they are able to have one more performance where they just have durability randomly. So that could happen here, but I'm not going to bank on it. Darius has displayed bad durability for years now. It's not just been recently. It's been, 4 or 5 years. So give me Salkilld by TKO. All right. We move on to the main event of the evening. Jack Della Maddalena versus Carlos the Nightmare Prates. Former welterweight champion Jack Della Maddalena and one of the nastiest KO artists in the entire sport right now, Carlos Prates. Now, I'm not even going to really waste the time with the resumes. Jack Della Maddalena, he's gotten some nasty, nasty KOs early, on the come up, was able to KO Gilbert Burns on a nice little comeback win. Overperformed in the Bilal Muhammad fight, really put an awesome display of martial arts on display in that fight. Defensive grappling looked amazing and boxed the bleeding head off of Bilal. But he looked like he got hit by a bus after the Bilal fight, and that's not a good look considering a lot of people that fight Bilal kind of leave unscathed. Even, Leon Edwards, Ian Gary, they fought Bilal, but they didn't really get hurt that much. And then, of course, just got absolutely held down and controlled easily by the GOAT Islam. No shame in that. But, I really like JDM's boxing style. Before this fight, taping this fight, I watched his fight versus Randy Brown, and I watched his fight versus Kevin Holland, because those are the only two opponents that are at all similar to Carlos Prates in JDM's UFC career so far. And in the Kevin Holland fight, he clearly won. I think it was a 30-27, but the range and the height of Kevin Holland and the back foot striking ability was giving him a lot of issues. And JDM's a guy that likes to trade in the pocket. He likes to stay in the center of the cage. You know, when you have a guy that's kind of using footwork, being a little bit elusive, mixing in kicks and teeps and knees in there, it gets a little iffy for JDM. We saw that in the Kevin Holland fight. And in the Randy Brown fight, Randy Brown was being a little bit spastic early there, kind of doing a little bit too much, was flicking the jab, was flicking the teep kicks, and JDM was able to use pressure very well in that Randy Brown fight, landed a good right hook, and then was able to latch up a Darce choke submission there, which was a very good finish for JDM, one of his better wins in my opinion. Carlos Prates, on the other hand, holy shit, his entire UFC career has been fucking phenomenal. I mean, just one of the most destructive KO artists we've ever seen in the entire sports history, realistically. You know, on the Contender Series, knocked out Mitch Ramirez. I believe his name was Mitch Ramirez, was it? Yeah, it was Ramirez. I don't know why this shit won't fucking load, Tapology. This is what we're going to do, because the UFC website likes to fucking act stupid sometimes. But, you know, Carlos Prates, his UFC career has been nasty. You know, Rich Ramirez, straight left, literally looked like Anderson Silva in that fight. Dana White said that after the fact, just styled on him, body kicking him, kneeing him, and then eventually got that straight left off just to close the show. You know, the Trevin Giles fight, a lot of people look back on that and they act like Carlos was getting pieced up a little bit. Not the case whatsoever. He was landing so many long knees to deter Trevin Giles' boxing. And then eventually he did start slow. He was kind of just teeping and kneeing, but eventually he landed that straight left, and that was all she wrote. Had Trevin Giles looking up at the bright lights. You know, I was there for this fight in attendance. You know, I was on the Carlos Prates hype train way before, you know, the Leech fight where he really kind of became mainstream, because I literally went to this fucking event right here mainly for Carlos Prates, because I knew it was going to be a fucking issue. This Louisville card here, where he got a nasty knee to the body against Charles Radke. I said I wasn't going to read resumes, but this dude's, his fucking KO ability is just so nasty. Schooled the Leech, just left hooking him out cold. Caught Neil Magny like 2 times in that entire fight. Dropped him on the canvas both times. And he was sleeping the second time he dropped him. And displayed some good defensive grappling in that fight as well, may I add. I'll get to the Ian Gary fight. You know, nasty spinning back elbow versus Jeff Neal buzzer beater. Something straight out of a movie. And then, you know, the Leon Edwards fight, he actually lost round 1. And then, you know, he was able to come back, of course, in the second round and just dome him with that left hand. You know, this fight's very close on the odds. Carlos Prates, slight favorite. I think that's justified. And look, I love Carlos Prates' style. He's going to give JDM a lot of issues with the fact that he has so many weapons. We look back at that Ian Gary fight and the long form combinations with the hands, pushing Carlos Prates back, you know, uppercutting him when he uses his long guard, head kicking him and, you know, kicking the left hand so he can't use that beam of a left hand as often. Ian Gary did that very, very well, and also shot a lot of single legs when Prates would, you know, overextend with that left hand in the open stance, you know, fight there. Ian Gary just had a perfect game plan for Carlos Prates, and Ian Gary is one of the best game planners and probably has the highest fight IQ in the entire division, other than maybe Islam. And I'll say maybe because Ian Gary is truly one of the best fighters in the division's history. He's so fucking good. But, you know, Ian Gary beat Carlos Prates, beat MVP. Like, the dude is super talented. You know, look there, Carlos Prates lost that Ian Gary fight, but he looked good late. And I was actually thinking that if Carlos didn't get the early KO, you know, because of the smoking and the drinking and the partying, his cardio probably really wouldn't look that good. But the dude's a natural athlete. He tends to not have cardio issues. He doesn't push a super high pace, and maybe we see that exposed here. Because if JDM pushes a heavy pace early, maybe he doesn't get knocked out, but he's still like in the face of Carlos unloading combinations, 4th and 5th round. Carlos may get tired because it may be a higher pace fight than the Ian Gary one, where they were kind of point fighting, especially early. But Carlos, I don't think his cardio is going to be an issue, and I liked what I saw in the 5th round of the Ian Gary fight, looking for the finish. Wasn't able to get it, but he was damn near close. And, you know, Carlos, all 8 limbs, nasty, nasty technique. And he got this danger tattoo on his left leg. That's a fucking fact because he can KO you any way. This dude's KO'd his opponents in basically every single facet or every single different way you can. He's gotten head kick KOs, in the LFA, flying knee KOs in the LFA, knee to the body against Charles Radke. That straight left is a piston. We know about that. Elbows, kicks, knees, elbows, punches. You got to worry about everything. Spinning attacks. He's just a nasty, nasty striker. Sometimes the volume isn't super good, and sometimes he doesn't defend low kicks very well from other southpaws, but I don't think JDM's going to really be landing many low kicks here against Prates. If JDM switches southpaw and tries to land low kicks on Prates, he's going to get beamed with the left hook. That's just how it's going to go because he's at such a height and reach disadvantage here. Prates is going to be able to just snipe him from so far away. And JDM, he's going to have to bob and weave and bob his way in, use head movement, and try to unload with the hands. It's going to require a lot more effort. It's going to put him in danger to get kneed or elbowed or head kicked. And I think that Prates, he's so good. If you watch his Muay Thai fights back in the day, he's so good at landing that knee to the body. I'm calling a Prates second round TKO knee to the body. In the same manner he beat Charles Radke. I think they're going to start kind of slow. I think both guys are going to, try and do some work with the hands. JDM's going to unload some body shots. Carlos is going to be flicking the jab, ripping some body kicks, teeping him. JDM's going to probably look to offensively grapple a little bit. I think it's going to be a high-paced fight early. I think that JDM's going to have Prates against the fence, trying to go for the takedown. Prates is not going to be getting taken down. He's not going to be having it. They're going to break, scrap a little more. JDM's going to probably try to, land some nice little hooks after the break. He does that quite often. If he's, in the clinch, as soon as he breaks, he's very good at unloading with his hands. But I think eventually in the second round, JDM's going to be getting popped with the two, popped with the jab, and he's going to start to try to rush his work a little bit. He's going to crash the pocket. Carlos is just going to knee him right in the liver. So, yeah, give me Prates by round 2 TKO, knee to the liver, just like he beat Charles Radke with. So, yeah, that's my main event prediction. Awesome fight here. Really looking forward to it. One of the best fights the UFC can put on right now. But yeah, that's my prediction. Carlos Prates, round 2 TKO. If you guys enjoyed the video, leave a like, subscribe. That means a lot to me. And have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the card this weekend.